Hello and welcome to another episode of Nerding Out with Nic Bodiford. I am your host, Nic Bodiford. The date is July 14th, 2022. Today we're going to be talking about running back rankings. The other day we recorded a show with Dr. Adam Hutchison detailing injury concerns in rounds 1 through 10 of current underdog ADP. Recommend everybody goes and checks that out. I will reference some of that info here as it pertains to some of the running backs. Getting started with one of those running backs, our number one overall running back and player is Christian McCaffrey. Now, I had Jonathan Taylor there for much of this offseason, but 3 points are can no longer be ignored. One, they have sort of fixed their quarterback situation with Baker Mayfield. He's not great. He might be good. He's better than Sam Darnold, and that counts for something. How much? We're going to find out. Point number 2, is Christian McCaffrey injury prone, or do we have concerns about his injuries? Not really. Adam detailed all of that. Basically, there's not a lot of correlation year to year with the injuries that he's had to what's going on today. Adam mentioned that these injuries kind of happened after McCaffrey bulked up one offseason to presumably be able to handle a larger workload, or the workload that he had been given. And sometimes what happens there, as he phrased it, as you sacrifice mobility for stability. With him, I don't think being up at that like 210 playing weight, because he entered the league at like 205. I think he went up to 210. I think he's back down, but the point is, one, he probably learned his lesson with that. 2, he's going to see a little bit less work, but where he's likely going to see less work, and this is point number 3, is in the run game. The team signed Donta Foreman. They have retained Chuba Hubbard. These are grinding backs. They are not capable dual threats. Dr. Edwin Porras, who's been on the show before, has detailed McCaffrey's high snap rate, and we talked about that on the show with Adam earlier this week. McCaffrey was on the field, I think, in his 2018 and 2019 seasons at a snap rate of 99%. Sometimes I think that he would dip to like 95, but most running backs get like 20% of plays off. At least they might hoard touches when they're on the field, but they are not asked to be out there all the time. And even just running and cutting and pretending to be in on a play on those plays where you're not going to get the ball, that still is wear and tear on your body that a lot of other running backs are not having to deal with, but McCaffrey was. So with the addition of Donta Foreman and the retaining of Chuba Hubbard, we can surmise that they're going to give McCaffrey reps off, especially on in running situations, which means that his receiving profile should stay intact. In a limited sample size in 2021, McCaffrey was averaging 5.71 targets per game. In his crazy 2018, 2019, I have the 2019 data here, he was averaging 8.44 targets per game. What we know is that receptions go for far more yards than the average carry. So that's great. And it's also why we have him ranked above Jonathan Taylor, who gets a ton of work. But Taylor, even in his breakout season last year, his targets per route run mark of 16% put him like 3 spots ahead of Derrick Henry. Now, there were other dual threat guys there, like Dalvin Cook, who's also in that neighborhood. But it's just not the type of gaudy receiving workload that we can expect from Christian McCaffrey. In sum, Taylor last year had 48 targets through the whole season. McCaffrey in 2019, I think he had, I'm pulling it up here. That was he was at 135 targets in 2019. Now, he's probably not going to reach that peak again because that's crazy, but it's in his range of outcomes to again go over 100 targets on a year. Taylor just doesn't have that profile. So Taylor will be efficient on the ground as a rusher. He'll even be efficient as a receiver. He had good targets per route run and yards per reception numbers last year, but he's just not going to have the receiving total. Now Taylor also ran quite hot in the touchdown column. I think he had 18 rushing touchdowns. That's probably going to regress a little bit, and it can still regress. Yeah, just to clarify there, Taylor was at 9 yards per reception, 1.23 yards per route run. That's okay for a running back. Yeah, Taylor ran hot in the touchdown column, and that will regress, and it can regress negatively to the mean, even down to 12 touchdowns rushing, and we're still getting a great season out of him. And Taylor still can totally finish as the running back one, but the receiving profile that McCaffrey has, who, I mean, he could just be scaled back to like the old Alvin Kamara workload of 2018, 2019 when he and Mark Ingram were sharing work, and we still have the best receiving back, best all-around back in football, going 250 touches. McCaffrey's odds of finishing as the RB1 are just a little bit higher than Taylor's. So for me, it's McCaffrey, but if you take Taylor, I'm not going to argue with you. That's a totally fine pick to make. Now, after we get outside that top two, things get a little bit more interesting here, and we start to factor in efficiency and workload. So my 3 through 5 are Austin Ekeler, Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones. I think that there's a case to be made that Aaron Jones should be the RB3. Javonte has a little bit of a longer shot. What we like about Ekeler is we know he's going over 100 targets this year. He's probably not going to see the same rushing workload that he had, and his touchdowns are going to regress. But he is a focal point of the LA Chargers offense. The Chargers are in the AFC West, who are playing the NFC West. These are two best divisions in football. We've talked about this a lot. You get good offenses playing against one another. They're going to continue to pass. We have one of the best pass catching all around backs in the NFL in Austin Ekeler. And we have one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL playing with him. So Ekeler, you do have to bank on efficiency because he's not going to get the same prolific workloads as some of these guys that we're going to continue to name here. But I think that he's a bit of an outlier in that you can bank on efficiency. So he is my RB3, but if you have him RB5, I won't argue. My RB4 right now is Javonte Williams. Last year, I was very high on Melvin Gordon because of the coaching staff. I surmised that Pat Shurmur, old school coach, was going to want to stick with the savvy veteran. He did. We have a smarter, we have a smarter coach now in Denver Broncos new head coach Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett, over the last 3 years in Green Bay as the offensive coordinator, they threw the ball on first half early downs roughly 55% of the time on all 3 downs. Javonte Williams showed that he was a plus receiving back. He even got a little more pass protection snaps than Melvin Gordon did last year. I'm calling that off the top of my head, so if it was 50-50, forgive me, but it was a surprising amount for a rookie. What we have now is a vastly improved offense, one by the head coach, and two by the quarterback in Russell Wilson. Javonte Williams will take a workload increase this year over Melvin Gordon. Why do I know that? 1, he's an ascending player and they used high draft capital on him. 2, Melvin Gordon was re-signed by this team, but it's important to remember, and hat tip to Dwayne McFarland for tipping me off to this, or tipping the world off to this a month or so ago. Denver offered Melvin Gordon a contract. It was a 1-year, $2.something million deal. Melvin Gordon didn't take it, and they said, that's fine. The offer is on the table. We love you, Melvin. Go see if you can get a better deal somewhere else. If you can't, this will be waiting for you. And he did. He went and he toured other organizations. Baltimore comes to mind here. He spent a week with them. He didn't take those deals, and he went back to Denver. What does that tell us? It tells us that they would love to have him, but he's not crucial to their plans. Javonte Williams is. Again, it's an AFC West team. Going to be a lot of points scored here. I am all in on Javonte Williams this year. Aaron Jones, in his, I think it's games plus or minus. It's probably 8 to 10 games. Go look it up. Without Davante Adams in the lineup, Jones suddenly becomes the number one pass catcher in Green Bay. Davante Adams obviously is now in Las Vegas this year. I think that Aaron Jones will push for the target lead at the running back position. Is he my favorite to hit the target lead? No, but he's going to be in that conversation. We already know that he's going to go, 150 touch or rushes or more. I don't think it's unreasonable for us to expect Aaron Jones to come close to 100 receptions, or excuse me, receptions would be great, but 100 targets this year. Moving on to the next guy, Dalvin Cook. So what I like about Cook, let's do the negative, and it's the negative that we always talk about. Dalvin Cook has separated both shoulders. One of them repeatedly. One of them he did have surgery on to fix it, and that decreased his expected redislocation rate. It dropped it down to like 25% or so. At Edwin fantasypoints.com, he has the actual data that tracks redislocation frequency. So I don't remember which shoulder it is. I think it's his right one that's at a lower rate, but 25% possible redislocation rate, or anyway, you go look it up. The other shoulder though, which he did separate again last year in 2021, is at over 50% redislocation rate. I think it's like 56% of recurrence. And this is taking a huge sample size of guys who have dislocated their shoulders. And once it happens X amount of times, it's X amount likely to happen, to continue happening, because that's the rate that it occurs at naturally. The bummer here is that when the shoulder gets redislocated, it's then for the next, I think, like 3 weeks at an even higher redislocation rate. So the problem with Dalvin Cook is that his season can quickly just become derailed. If they only give him one game off, he redislocates it, then he's out for a longer period of time, blah, blah, blah. But his upside is immense. And he's no longer going to be held back by the low play volume that Minnesota was running under head coach Mike Zimmer over the last few years. They're going to be, they're now coached by Kevin O'Connell. He was the passing game coordinator in Los Angeles, the LA Rams. And then I think he spent a year last year as the offensive coordinator. That's a team that routinely stays in the top 10 in pace, offensive plays per game. We want more touches for Dalvin Cook. We want more receiving work for Dalvin Cook. He is perhaps not, the Christian McCaffrey or Eckler type of dual threat receiving back, but he's very, very good in the passing game. Go look at, the usage that kind of Todd Gurley got. I think that we can expect a little bit of an increase, if not an increase in his overall target volume, an increase in first half early down target volume, because they're going to be throwing the ball in first and second down in the first half of games, as opposed to trying to establish the run. I don't have the data in front of me for what the value of a target is versus what the value of a carry is right now, but historically it's hovered around 7 yards per, I think it's target or reception for a running back, and 4 yards for a carry. So very quickly we can see how you can almost double your production just by looks in the passing game. And it's even better when you're playing against defense expecting a run instead of a pass. You go out for a pass, the running back leaks out, you can knock it to him. And yeah, Dalvin Cook, RB6 this year. Saquon Barkley is my running back 7. Edwin has been the man here for a season and a half now, I guess, or a year. Anyway, he was high on him entering last year. And the idea is that Barkley's injuries are not necessarily prone to recurring. There's a little bit of hamstring risk after an ACL reconstruction because they take hamstring tissue. It's gross. But he didn't really have any hamstring issues last year, as I recall. The big issue is that he sprained his ankle, and this led some people to believe that Barkley is injury prone. Well, here's the thing: as he was returning from his ACL tear, each week we saw his workload go up and up and up and up, along with his snap count up and up and up and up, and it was great. I think at the final week that he was healthy was it was like 84% snap rate. Great. Maybe even too high. But what happened was he suffered a high ankle sprain. High ankle sprains are brutal. They just end a guy's season. They'll come back in season, but there are recurrence issues. There are production issues. If a guy gets a high ankle sprain, my advice to you in season, there's a redraft league, try to trade high on him. Try to trade him. Try to trade him on his name value. How did he get the high ankle sprain though? It was after a play. He stood up and another guy walked by and stood on his foot and he tried to move it and he just suffered a high ankle sprain. It was a total freak thing. This was not that he got banged up and it was like a root. Anyway, it was a total freak occurrence. Don't expect it to repeat itself. We have as big of a coaching improvement as you can get, going from Jason Garrett and Joe Judge to Brian Daboll. Okay, Saquon Barkley, running back 7. Leonard Fournette. The end is near, but right now Fournette's usage is about as good as it gets for a running back playing the Tampa Bay or Tom Brady offense. They throw a ton on first half early downs. They throw it to him on third down too. Lenny, each off season he just gets terribly out of shape, and there are concerns here. He's had hamstring issues. He's had weight issues, but anyone who had him last year can tell you that the dude is a friggin' baller in fantasy. On the plus side, they let Ronald Jones go, who was a threat to his rushing workload. But on the downside, they did bring in Rachaad White. Rachaad White is a talented rookie running back, and he's good in both facets of the game. So he could be an issue later on. But Tom Brady is running the offense, and he trusts Leonard Fournette. When Brady trusts a guy, especially a running back, that is going to be the one that is on the field. It's going to be hard for a rookie to earn Tom Brady's trust, and we can. And so in underdog drafts, late in the draft, if you can go get Rachaad White, you should totally do it, because that is a guy who has an immense ceiling, but he's got zero floor. I think Leonard Fournette is fine. I'm going to go check his underdog ADP, because I think right now he is going in the second round, and I think that Fournette, there's an argument to be made that he can be taken in the end of the first round. There he is, Leonard Fournette. Okay, yeah, geez, pick 21.7, average of the RB11 off the board. That is a fine price to pay for the guy. Yeah. He comes with some injury issues, and we know what they are, but the upside literally is running back 1. Okay, it's RB1 overall. Moving along. Couple of young guys here at 9 and 10, Najee Harris, Breece Hall. Najee, okay, might once again contend for league touch lead. Will have his snaps reduced because they need to do that. Otherwise, he's on the Christian McCaffrey path. Evan Silva has done a good job of highlighting the fact that Najee is a very slow running back. I think he only had 4 carries over 20 yards last year. That's a terrible breakaway rate. And they're going to be playing either with Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett under center. They still have a terrible offensive line. I mean, it's improving, but it's still pretty damn bad. And Najee, I had him up at like RB3 earlier this offseason, but efficiency really could be a problem for the guy. I don't think that this offense is going to be scoring at the same rate as some of the other guys on this list. Excuse me, needed a whistle there. As for RB10, Breece Hall. So Hall can be expected to take over lead back duties in New York, the New York Football Jets. His downside is that he's playing with Zach Wilson. We don't yet know if Zach Wilson is good. His underlying metrics don't look promising, but he played last year with a knee injury. He could turn the offense around. Now, we just saw Breece Hall, playing with a shell of Ben Roethlisberger, and just on pure touch volume, he was able to produce. I don't think that Breece Hall is going to get the same workload because Michael Carter was very good. It's a bummer they drafted Breece Hall, because Michael Carter, if you go down, you look through all of his underlying data, and the dude had a pretty fine season. I think that Carter will remain involved in pure passing situations, and that will continue to be a problem for Breece Hall in some circumstances. But like Carter last year, He had a 23% targets per out run mark. That's really high. He had 1.48 yards per out run. I mean, these are great numbers. So Carter, he's a proven commodity, but hey, he was always a little bit on the undersized spectrum. So it's probably going to be a 1-2 punch, but I would bet that Breece Hall, who is a good receiving back, I bet Breece Hall goes over 200 carries, and I bet that I think 50 targets is fairly reasonable. We can hope for more. Okay, RB11 and RB12. Actually, we just got a slew of veterans here, so I'm going to read them off. These are guys that are kind of in the same tier. Running back 11 through 14. Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Swift, not a veteran, and James Conner. As far as Kamara goes, we've recently gotten word from a couple of legal minds. I quote tweeted it, but it's really, really good stuff. Drew Davenport had another lawyer on, Jordan. I can't remember his last name. Again, it's on my timeline. Drew Davenport of the Auction Brief, he had a lawyer on. They talked about the way that the legal system functions, what they are seeing from Kamara. There's a video of Kamara beating a guy up. It's supposed to be really bad. Initially, it was thought that Kamara was going to miss time this year, but given the way that the legal proceedings are going, he's probably not going to have a court date where they rule on what's going on, either until in season or after the season, which means that for whatever reason, I don't listen to Drew for the details here, but he's probably not going to be suspended until the 2023 season. So we don't need to worry about that for this year. What does that mean now? He's going to get a ton of touches. Now, they're probably not going to be as receiving heavy as we would like them to be, but I have started to draft Kamara in underdog drafts. He's currently, his ADP is going up. He's currently coming off the board 34th overall. So end of the third round as the running back 15. That's a fine place to take him, because by the time that we're really into, sorry, you guys, I didn't take my allergy stuff today. By the time we are into like third week of August, I think that Kamara will probably go back to being drafted as a like locked in RB1. So right now, take advantage of this average draft position. If you compare him with like if you go like Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs, Javonte Williams, and Alvin Kamara, that is a killer start. Okay, Ezekiel Elliott. So Zeke, the dude soldiered through injury last year, and the team clearly still, I mean, they got rid of multiple players because of how much money they paid him, and they didn't try to move him or move on from him or whatever. They let go of Amari Cooper to keep Ezekiel Elliott. They're going to continue to start him, but his legs are going. He's no longer as efficient as he used to be. It's still going to be a fairly high scoring offense. And so I want him in the RB1 tier, but this is probably sell time in Dynasty. Redraft, I think it's fine as like an anchor pick just on pure touch volume, but the Tony Pollard is better as a rusher and as a receiver, way better as a receiver. Now, Ezekiel Elliott is good in pass protection, so he's going to stay on the field for that reason. He's an interesting pick in dynasty drafts. You get a couple rounds in, depending on the format. Hey, super flex. Maybe you take Zeke after a few rounds and just try to get like a 1 or 2 year rental out of him. But the end is fast approaching. This year, though, he's probably still going to get 300 touches. DeAndre Swift, buddy, and I, shout out to you, Mr. James Wolfe. He's an author. Go check him out. DeAndre Swift has a wide range of potential outcomes. His ceiling outcome, not kidding, is like vintage Alvin Kamara, where he is averaging a very, very high receiving workload and is getting ample rushing work. Here's the problem. He's not as good as a rusher as Kamara is. And frankly, so what's interesting, I was looking at his target totals, his yards per reception efficiency, and his rushing efficiency. And he, like last year, he is really, really on the same spectrum in those three categories as JD McKissick. he just gets like twice as many carries, and so it kind of neutralizes out. So it's unfair to say that his floor is J.D. McKissic, but he was not good as a rusher last year. He was bad. He can improve. His vision can improve. He can improve as a rusher, and he's already a very good receiver, which is why, again, that Kamara finish is in his potential range of outcomes. But it wouldn't be shocking if the Lions coaching staff gave Jamal Williams quite a few carries. Now, we can look at the end of last year. Swift is still getting work in XYZ situations, which is why I think at the right ADP, I think that he's a totally fine pick. And at the right build, he's a totally fine pick. But here's the problem. On Underdog right now, he's coming off the board 15th overall as the RB8. That's probably meaning that you are getting him as your anchor running back. It would be a very fragile build. Not a bad one, but it'd be very fragile. I do really love the Lions this year, though. I think that they are a dark horse to win the division. I would bet the over. I think a fun parlay would be betting the over on their win total and the under on the Seahawks win total. James Conner. So Conner last year, I was actually kind of surprised. I was looking at his receiving work last season. He remains very efficient, but he really didn't get as much dual threat usage as I had recalled, because he just had such a great season. He scored a lot of touchdowns. But in terms of his pure receiving volume, so this is regular season and postseason, he only had 41 targets. Now, he was really efficient. He had reasonably efficient for a running back, 1.59 yards per route run, which is that's up there. That's like a top 20 mark, probably, maybe a little bit less. And I lost it. No, okay, no. Excuse me. Hold on. Somehow I had Jameson or Jamal Williams highlighted there. I guess the computer heard me talking about him. So yeah, 1.59 yards per route run, 17% targets per route run. These are very reasonable numbers for a lead back. Again, this is a good offense. They're going to score a lot of points. It's in the NFC West, so the pace is going to be pushed even higher than it otherwise would be pushed because of the fact that they're playing, one, the NFC West, and two, the AFC West. That's fantastic. We already know that Conner has had a bunch of connective tissue issues. It's possible that came from him battling Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he had to go through chemotherapy. Repeated connective tissue injuries, as I've learned from Edwin, can sometimes point to a systemic problem. I'm not a doctor. Go look up his research to get a better understanding of it. But the guy was fairly healthy last year, and he's on a great offense. So I don't know if he's going to finish as an RB1 like he did last season, but RB14 for me, I think is reasonable. And the drafting public is not making you take him as an RB1. He's coming off the board 33 overall, is the RB14 on Underdog. So I'm in line with ADP there. And I think that it's fine to take him in that range. Okay, next up, a trio of run-centric backs, RB15 through 17, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry. Mixon, it's a bummer. He gets so many rushes, but he does not get enough passing game work. Zach Taylor, after the Super Bowl, lamented taking him off the field for third down, putting in Samaje Perine when the game was on the line. And then, okay, now we're getting a bunch of reports from camp saying that Chris Evans is emerging as a dynamic receiving back. And that makes sense because he is that. But we want Joe Mixon to get the targets, and it's just as Sigmund Bloom says, the steady drumbeat right now is that Chris Evans is killing it in the passing game. And also Zach Taylor was saying some BS about how if they give him more targets, you have to take it away from T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And if something like, and then people will complain about us taking, no, you don't have to take away those, take it away from the ancillary pieces. I mean, Tyler Boyd's great, but take a couple off his plate, take some away from the tight ends. Don't put Samaje Perine out there. You don't have to take away from the superstars to give more work to Mixon, but he's telling us he's probably not going to do it. So he's the RB15 for me. I think it's going to be a run-centric workload. It's going to be heavy volume. I think he was top 8, maybe top 10. In overall running back touches last year. But yeah, so much of it is run centric. Okay, Nick Chubb in Cleveland. So Chubb's range of outcomes is interesting. Before Kareem Hunt was there, when Kareem Hunt was suspended for those first 8 games when he was in Cleveland, Chubb, I remember this off the top of my head because I was clinging to this. Nick Chubb was getting 4 targets per game. Kareem Hunt came in, it dropped down to like 2.1 per game. Since then, we've had, Kareem Hunt miss some time, whatever, and Chubb just doesn't get all of these targets coming his way. Dearness Johnson was given passing game work last year. I just don't think Chubb's gonna get that receiving profile that we want. The team also kind of wants to protect him. They did invest a lot of money in him. I think they gave him a 3-year deal this offseason. Maybe it was last offseason. They want to preserve him as a rusher because he's a phenomenal rusher. But here's the thing. Given everything that's going on with Deshaun Watson right now, it's possible that what they do is they just try to run the game out from start to finish. And I wonder if Chubb is a dark horse to lead the league in carries. That will totally depend on if Deshaun Watson gets suspended for like 12 games or a full season or indefinitely. But it's an interesting thought. Again, though, we want receiving work, not rushing work. Derrick Henry, RB17. I have been as high as anyone on Derrick Henry for years now. This is not great. We talked about with Adam, we talked about the age drop off for grinder backs is like age 24. Now he had a slow start to his career because they kept trying to split time. It was goofy. But Derrick Henry, I'm double checking right now, but I think he's 29 years old. Even for the all-purpose plus backs, the elite dual threat backs, Adam had worked out that their drop off is age 27.5. Yeah, Henry's 28 years old, and he turned 28 back in January. So the guy is going to be, I love Henry. Oh, and he's coming off the Jones fracture. I love Derrick Henry, but I think that now is the time to probably get out of the Derrick Henry business. I'm double checking his ADP here. So if he falls to the 17th running back area, take him because his upside is immense. I mean, he was it last year. It took Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris a month to catch up to Henry's touch total after Henry went out. So the upside's immense, but there's some writing on the wall here. Right now, Derrick Henry coming off the board, 7.8 as the running back 4 on Underdog. No, thank you. Travis Etienne at running back 18. We talked about this with Adam, and just go listen to it. He broke down why the Liz Frank issue is not, sorry guys, the seagulls are going nuts. Why the Liz Frank issue is not that big of an issue. Edwin has talked about how production the year following a Liz Frank injury dips 21%. But here's the thing. We don't have anything to base that on. We don't have a baseline for ETNs. We don't know what his workload is. Maybe he's going to touch the ball 280 times. And okay, if he doesn't have great efficiency there, who cares? But he damaged his Liz Frank. It's a foot thing. He damaged it in August last year. He has had a much longer time to recover than the average person who suffers a Liz Frank injury. A lot of times that's in season. So I'm all in on Travis Etienne, and I probably need to move him up because his receiving profile is friggin' elite. And part of so 2 things here. One, he played with Trevor Lawrence, his quarterback, in college, and he was his friggin' guy, or was one of his guys. He ate it up in the receiving game, and he was a phenomenal rusher too. The other thing, the competition here is James Robinson, who ruptured his Achilles tendon last year, and Snoop Connor, who is about as athletic as a fast offensive lineman. Athleticism matters at the running back position. He has some things that he's all right. Snoop Connor is all right at. But the point is, I just don't think that they have other guys that they can even really give the workload to. And I'm not trying to say that I'm basing this ranking or my optimism on projectable volume, because projectable volume is oftentimes a trap. But that is there. That's part of the profile. And he's supremely talented. It's a great situation with Trevor Lawrence, and Doug Peterson is a good coach. He's not great, but he's good. He's a very, very solid coach. I kind of want to move Travis Etienne up to like RB13 ahead of Swift. Okay, going to speed things up here a little bit. Running back 19, David Montgomery. 20, Elijah Mitchell. 21, Kareem Hunt. 22, Miles Sanders. David Montgomery has gone over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns in all 4 years of his career. It's a brutal situation in Chicago. They've got a B League roster, but the volume should be there. The problem is he's in the running back dead zone. For those of you who don't understand or don't know what the running back dead zone is, historically, this late 3rd to like 6th round area oftentimes yields flops at the running back position, because basically lead backs who are good enough to get a big workload or who are just going to get a big workload, they go earlier because their ceiling is so insanely high. And if there's a reason that they don't have that kind of outcome, they oftentimes will fail. And teams and this is empirical, I'm not making this up, this is not an opinion. Hayden Winks has done great research on this for best ball advance rates on Underdog, where you look at the number of teams who advanced from their pool, or, Best Ball Mania, the Puppy, etc. They advanced from the regular season pool to the playoff pool. They had certain types of roster builds, and these guys who drafted, guys and gals who drafted heavily in the running back dead zone, oftentimes advance at a less frequent rate than teams that avoid the running back dead zone. So again, this is empirical. This is not, the nerds just being nerds and upsetting the football guys. This is empirical. So there's a trapdoor floor here with Montgomery, and it's just that he probably won't be that productive. But if depending on where he goes, if you can get him in the end of the 6th round or the 7th round, suddenly it might be worth it. He's not going in the top 50 picks right now. Okay, so he's at 53. Our running back 20. There's still guys there that I like more than him. Elijah Mitchell. We know what the deal is with Mitchell. He gets a lot of rushing work. He does not get a lot of usage in the passing game. As far as the injury concerns go, Adam talked about Elijah Mitchell earlier this week. He's a little undersized and he gets banged up. He suffered an AC joint sprain. He fractured a finger, and then I think he had a rib issue and irritated knee. AC joint sprain is super common for the running back position. Breaking a finger is that's not position specific, and I'm not worried about that. Recurring ribs, yeah, maybe a little bit, and knee irritation, I don't know. That might be, he's not big enough to handle the workload, whatever. Adam brought up that his draft capital might be the problem. Or might be a problem where if he gets banged up again, teams like to keep guys on the field who they spent an early round pick on, because of the fact that they had to convince ownership that, hey, we made a good choice with this guy. And they're oftentimes guys who were picked in the first 3 rounds or even first 2 rounds. They'll get more and more chances, and they're less likely to lose their jobs. But I do think so. Elijah Mitchell was a 6th round pick in the 2021 draft last year. He was a rookie and he killed it. God, he was so good. And he was getting like 18 touches a game. I think he was he was one of very, very few running backs to just not have a fumble. Shanahan loves this guy. And the 49ers have a history. I wonder if the 49ers, if we shouldn't apply that late round draft capital issue to Mitchell, because of the fact that the San Francisco 49ers have a history of just killing their darlings whenever they need to. Dante Pettis was a top 2 or 3 round pick. Oh man, what's the guy's name? Glenn Coffey, was it? It was one of those running backs back in the day. Same thing, just kind of got rid of him. Trey Sermon last year, they moved on before the season even started, and they used a 3rd round pick on him. So this team is not afraid to get rid of guys actually that Shanahan trades up for. We know that these picks were guys that Shanahan said, no, go get them. They showed up because, sorry, it wasn't what I thought he was. And they cast him aside. So I don't think that we necessarily need to worry about Elijah Mitchell getting passed over if he gets hurt. But I am very high on Tyrion Davis-Price. We can talk about him in a little bit. I like Mitchell. His ADP is a little bit tough, but I love that guy. He's a phenomenal player. Oh, keep an eye out for Adam. He at some point he's going to try to do an article or a study on running back injuries based on rushing schemes, and this scheme tends to have guys who maybe get hurt, but it's not quite empirically established yet, so don't quote me on that, but keep an eye out for that. One sec. All right, guys, sorry, I'm knocking down this green smoothie as we go. Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's floor is running back 2. He just keeps doing that year after year. It'll be harder if Jacoby Brissett is at the helm, but Hunt is very, very good. He could start on probably 15 teams. If Deshaun Watson shows up, then, Watson does run, but at the same time, it's a better quarterback, and we like good quarterbacks because they make the offense better. So, hooray. The out here, or the true ceiling for Kareem Hunt, is the fact that he doesn't have a lot of guaranteed money. He has a lot of money due, the most of any running back in the Cleveland backfield. Cleveland doesn't need cap space, but they do need picks, and they've been trying to recoup picks because of the Watson trade. If someone's going to get traded from this backfield, and this is also kind of part of Nick Chubb's ceiling season, maybe a little bit, if they decide that they need more picks and they want to kick the can down the Hunt could get traded. And if someone's going to get traded from this backfield, he is, I think, the most likely guy. If he goes somewhere cool, Kansas City, for instance, he becomes like a top 7-5 even player. So drafting him, I think, is prudent because of that ceiling alone. He's currently coming off the board. 94.4 is the RB30. That's too low. Draft him. Miles Sanders. Sanders didn't score a touchdown last year. That's crazy. They got a bit of a bigger back in Kennedy Brooks that they brought on the team. Jordan Howard's currently not on the team. They still have Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. The offense is going to be better as a whole. I think they're going to go back to passing. Last year, the Eagles passed at first half early down rate of 66%. It was the second highest in the league through the first, it was 6 weeks or something like that. And then they drastically scaled it back and became a run first team. I think that they can get back to passing, which is good for the whole offense. They brought in A.J. Brown. I think it could open up rushing lanes for Miles Sanders, but there are enough things up in the air that it's hard to want to take him as a running back too. But the ceiling is that he goes nuts in a division-winning Eagles offense. So I get it. RB23, Dameon Pierce. This one's speculative, and I understand that Pierce could totally flop because he's a rookie, but he was a good receiver in college. He carried the ball a lot. He's big. I think he's like 6 foot, 215 pounds. And there's no one in this backfield. So the Houston Texans, they're basically just running a tryout at like nearly all positions. Yeah, Dameon Pierce, 5'10", 224 pounds. I think that Dameon Pierce is a dark horse to take. I think he's the favorite. I think he's the favorite to take over lead back duties in Houston. Now, it's a bad team, but he is talented. The offense has a nucleus in Davis Mills, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, and now Dameon Pierce potentially. So it's a guy that I want to draft. You don't have to take him very high. I like Pierce a lot. RB24, Chase Edmonds. I'm not giving him enough credit with his ceiling here, but they're going to cycle backs in Miami. They've got Mike McDaniel, the former offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. They've got him at the helm. Edmonds was immediately signed in free agency as soon as Mike McDaniel took the job. I think he's going to be the lead back there, and I think that he's going to get a pretty decent workload. But they also brought in, so they had Myles Gaskin, who was last year's starter. They brought in another former starter from McDaniel's old team, Raheem Mostert, and they brought in Sony Michel, who's been a starter for 2 different teams in the NFL. I think that Chase Edmonds is the best one of the group, but hey, he's competing with 3 other former starters, so that's relevant to our process. Running back 25, Ramondre Stevenson. I've kind of fluctuated on him, but here's the deal. He's a very good rusher, and he is a pretty good receiver. Last year, he was probably the most talented receiving back on the team. I know. Brandon Bolden, a career special teamer, took over the receiving game work once James White injured his hip. But here's the thing. That career special teams, blah, 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 pretty much all took place in New England. I think he spent 1 year in Miami, or maybe he's back down in Miami now. I should look that up. But the point is, they wanted a savvy veteran in there to help Mac Jones acclimate to the NFL. when Ramondre was given opportunity, he friggin' crushed it. Brendan Bolden is now a Las Vegas Raider. That's right. Bolden friggin' crushed it. He was putting people on ice skates in the preseason. I mean, you can go look at his highlights. The dude is a baller, or as Evan Silva says, cold baller. Dameon Pierce is on the final year of his contract. Harris was great last year. He was a rush-only back, and he ran hot in the touchdown column. I don't expect that to continue. The team also did draft Pierre Strong, who is a very, very good collegiate receiving back and rusher. I think long-term, what we can expect is that Ramondre takes over in 2023 as the lead ball carrier and dual threat, and Pierre Strong kind of takes over the James White role. But what's going on with James White? He might not even make the team. That hip injury is bad. He dislocated his hip to a different degree than Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua did, but a hip dislocation is potentially career-ending. Right now, I think he was left off Mike Reese's 53-man roster to start the year. So Ramondre, in his range of outcomes, is that Dameon Pierce takes over as the lead rusher. Stevenson actually takes the James White job with rushing on the side. I like him as a flex play. A.J. Dillon, RB26. Argument to be made, you could even move him up. He could push for 180 carries this year, maybe even 50 targets. It's going to be a running back heavy system here, and he's good. Cordell Patterson is RB27. Strange end of the year last year. He had a bunch of dual threat usage, and then they scaled him back to a rushing only running back. They drafted Tyler Algier, who's a big old bruiser. So maybe they're going to move Cordell Patterson back into kind of a receiving hybrid receiver role. We don't know, but the touch volume should be there, and he's pretty decent. Although I think it's fine to take Tyler Algier late in drafts. Bad offense, though. That's a bummer. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I have fluctuated on the Chiefs backfield. Early this offseason, I actually had Ronald Jones ranked ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm going to cover both of these backs right now, and I'm just going to tell you, Ronald Jones is my running back 35. CEH is 28. Ronald Jones is now 35. Here's the deal. Ronald Jones is a better pure rusher than Clyde Edwards-Helaire is. Ronald Jones cannot pass protect, and he cannot catch a pass to save his life. What does that mean? Might have 200 carries, might be the lead back in scoring position. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had his gallbladder pulled out before the beginning of the season, supposedly dropped down to 160 pounds last year. That could explain why he struggled, but we already knew he was slow. There were reasons to doubt him from the beginning, but he's a talented passing game component. So I take him as a flex play. Don't expect more than a flex. I think is reasonable because, they lost Tyreek Hill. He's a long tenured guy there. I think he could have a decent receiving season, but his rushing is anywhere from like 80 carries to 180 carries. Josh Jacobs, pretty much a rush only back at this point. Josh McDaniels is now the head coach in Las Vegas. He has always run a platoon in New England. I think he even ran one at Denver, but we're just focusing on New England because that was his main stomping grounds. I think Josh Jacobs, they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. It's the final year of his deal. I think they're going to give him 220 carries and send him packing. Antonio Gibson, basically the same thing. Ron Rivera doesn't like him. Ron Rivera also likes using multiple backs. They brought in Brian Robinson, who was a great running back for Alabama last year. They also have J.D. McKissick, and they matched the Buffalo Bills offer sheet to McKissick this offseason. So I think that Gibson is like a rush only back. He could get a crazy workload. Last year was so bizarre. He was dealing with shin splints, and then they increased his workload. It didn't make any sense. I think he's a run-centric back, and I'm not optimistic. Dameon Harris, run-centric back, not terribly optimistic, but the Patriots offense is ascending. They will continue to control the clock with the run game, but he could just get replaced by Ramondre by the end of the year. So his range of outcomes is not all that high, I don't think. Tony Pollard, RB32. I've seen Rich Rebar talk about his proficiency as a receiver lined up in the slot. I think he's like the best running back on a per target basis in the slot. The guy he's a phenomenal dual threat running back, but they just love Ezekiel Elliott. So I think you can only count him as a flex play. If you're doing a bunch of underdog drafts, it's good to diversify their portfolio and draft Tony Pollard from time to time, because if Zeke gets hurt, or if they finally say, screw it, we're putting Zeke on the bench, Pollard's upside is top 12. Running back 33, Tyrion Davis-Price. There's a great video that Matt Waldman and Angelo FF, I think it's Angelo FF, did on a number of guys in this draft class. I have quote tweeted it multiple times. You can find it. Search for Matt Waldman, Angelo, Tyrion Davis-Price. You'll find it. They break down his rushing style. It is not patient like Trey Sermon's was, which is bad for a scheme that is designed to open a hole and have the running back hit it. That's what Tyrion Davis-Price is. He makes a cut and boom, he's going upfield. He's very good at LSU last year. There are some things in his profile where like I think he had to split time and whatever. The talent is there. He's a good scheme fit, and we're talking about the best run game in the NFL. Sign me up. This is a team that uses their third running back on the depth chart more than any other team in the NFL. He's only the number 2 right now because he's already passing Trey Sermon. Right now I've completed 4 underdog drafts. I'm in Washington. Give me a break. I have to go on vacation down to Oregon to complete drafts. So I've got a few more in the works. Right now I have Kadarius Toney and Tyrion Davis-Price in all 4 squads, and I think all the other drafts that are in progress in the state of Oregon. There's a bird fight going on outside. All 4 drafts I've got Kadarius Toney and Tyrion Davis-Price. I live in Seattle. I live by the sea. Waterfowl aplenty, but I love Tyrion Davis-Price. I think he's a very talented rusher. I think he could go over 10 carries per game, and getting TDP, as Jax Falcone of Dino Game Theory would say, you down with TDP? Yeah, you know me. Tyrion Davis-Price coming off the board, 155.4 is the running back 48. Smash that every time. Draft him around ahead of ADP. That is. I think we're talking like 13th round there. I've got him. Yeah, running. I think he'll be a weekly flex by the end of the season. James Cook. Cook's super interesting. So he's the brother or cousin of Dalvin Cook. He's built very similarly. They test very similarly. He's a low to the ground rusher. He's a little bit smaller than Dalvin is. He's not terribly large. His vertical jump sucks, like Dalvin Cook's does. But he's a very, very good receiving back. He is 6 foot 204. So if he was 6 pounds heavier, even, we'd be feeling a little bit better about him. But he's quick in short area. His broad jump is good. He was 10 foot 4 inches. That is laterally explosive. He's in a great offense, and I know that Josh Allen passes to wide receivers at the highest rate in the NFL, but they just haven't had. They went out to go get J.D. McKissic. They haven't had a plus receiving back on their roster so far. They made it very clear that they wanted one. They had J.D. McKissic signed, and then McKissic backed out because Washington matched the offer sheet. So they wanted to get this type of player in the offense. Now, is he going to get a big time rushing workload? Probably not, because they have Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, who are okay rushers. But I think 80 targets and like 50 or 60 carries is in his potential range of outcomes. I think he can be a very good flex play. And it could be like 80 and 80. It could be 80 and 80. I haven't done projections for Buffalo yet. But I like James Cook a lot. I understand that in underdog, he's being taken off the board high because we've got the crazy, zero RB guys drafted. I love those guys. They're great. They're brilliant. And zero RB and anchor RB or hero RB or modified zero RB is a very valid, drafting, plan for best ball formats. James Cook's good. Ronald Jones, we already covered him. Okay, next up, the Seattle backs at 36 and 37. Rashad Penny is good. He has had weight issues. He's had injury issues. And you know what? They drafted him at the end of the first round back in the day, and then they just gave the reins to Chris Carson because Pete Carroll is committed to drafting players moronically. And So Rashad Penny finally proved that he's a good running back last year. And then they drafted Kenneth Walker at the beginning of the second round. It would be perfectly Pete Carrollian for him to spend another high draft pick on a running back, only to go to a different running back who he already has on the roster and just bench Kenneth Walker in favor of Rashad Penny. What I think is going to happen is that they're going to lose a ton of games. They're going to try to go, oh, we need to switch up the personnel. And I think that both of these guys will have blow up weeks. I doubt that they are both productive at the same time, because last year Seattle ran, they were running like 52 plays a game. And in some, I think I've heard Dwayne McFarland say this was like 2.5 fewer games worth of plays than what Buffalo ran, which I think led the league last year in plays per game. What that means is that there's not a lot of touches to go around. One guy could get a great workload, but it's probably going to be hard for both of these guys to produce at the same time on a given week, which makes them really rough picks in redraft format and fine picks in best ball, because it's one. I mean, they're going to get one guy will get like 23 carries, and that's great. Running back 38 and 39. Yeah, I guess we had a pair of NFC West backfields going on here. So I've got Darrell Henderson at 38 and Cam Akers at 39. Adam is way higher on Cam Akers, and he is a medical professional, so I should probably listen to him. Cam Akers ruptured his Achilles tendon last year, and the most successful running back that we've ever seen come back from an Achilles rupture was Donta Foreman, who had to take an entire season off and then basically not play the following year. And then he found success, I think it was in 2020, as a backup, or maybe it was 2021. But the point is, it basically took the guy 2 years to recover. Cam Akers came back in season last year, which is remarkable after like 6 months or something crazy. He ruptured his Achilles. Anyway, you can look up the dates. The point is, Akers is a freak athlete. He ran, I think it was a 1.47 10-yard split. That's faster than Tyreek Hill. The only guy that I know that is faster, only offensive player that I know of that's faster than Cam Akers in that regard was Chris Johnson. So he has extreme athleticism, and we have seen that athletic running backs are able to recover from injuries more effectively than guys who are unathletic. Basically, they can lose some athleticism and they might just be average. He also was a high draft pick. I think he was a second round pick. We talked earlier about the fact that teams like to continue to give guys chances who they invested high draft capital in. And I think Akers is a good example of this. That he was drafted in the second round, pick 52 overall in 2020. The problem here is that, again, no one's ever really done it before. And what he did was unprecedented. But as Edwin has pointed out, what we saw last year, where he was, I think, the 42nd ranked running back in efficiency. Actually, I had these notes down here, and I'm pulling them up. He was so he came back in the playoffs. This is from one of my breakdowns here. His 2.4 yards per carry ranked 42nd among 43 qualifying running backs, minimum of 10 attempts during that span. Oh yeah, that was week 18 through the playoffs. And his 7.8 yards per reception was tied for 11th among 26 qualifying backs with a minimum of 5 targets. So his rushing efficiency was god awful. And I understand that he played good run defenses. His receiving efficiency was mediocre. And we're looking at like high up numbers, right? We're not getting into the targets per out run and all that. But like Adam has said, or excuse me, Edwin has said, that might just be who Akers is. He might have really made his full recovery already. Now, there's reason to believe that he didn't. Why? Because he's had another like 6 months off to continue to build strength and explosiveness. The issue here is that the Achilles tendon is just not like a ligament that like the ACL in the knee. A ligament is this, like, it's a sturdy thing that just, it's think of like a rope that is holding a boat to a dock. It gets to a certain like it doesn't really expand. It just holds these two things in place that are rubbing against each other, the femur and the base of the fibia, or the top of the fibia or tibia or whatever. It's not elastic really. What you do is you just replace it with another piece of firm something, and it just has to hold those bones in place. The Achilles tendon it's part of the calf muscle. It functions in conjunction with the calf muscle. It expands with the calf muscle. When you alter that tissue, it's forever changed. Typically, that means the guys can't come back. But we have seen players in other sports, like Kevin Durant. He came back from an Achilles rupture. Medical science will probably get to a point where guys can come back and be fine. We did that with ACL. I hope that we continue to do that with patellar tendon too. Oh, that one's really, really brutal as well. Cam Akers, you're betting on an outlier, and you have medical professionals who are telling you that he should be okay. Like Adam mentioned Jim Previtt, I think his name is, or Jeff Mueller. Is that what it is? He mentioned that Mr. Dr. Mueller, he has been a big believer in Akers really since the injury, because medical science has advanced. Long and short is, we don't know. I'm a little bit bearish on him even after speaking with Adam. But hey, here's the good case for him. He holds up. He doesn't suffer any setbacks or anything. He's not terribly efficient, but he just gets a bunch of volume. That could be successful. That could do it for you. I think right now, Akers is coming off the board in the first round, or excuse me, he's coming off the board in the fourth. Yeah, 45.3 RB19. It's hard for me to pull the trigger there, but I should probably force myself to diversify. What do we have in Darrell Henderson? We have a capable rusher, not a very good receiver. He's okay in the receiving game, but he's not that great. And he's gotten hurt a bunch of times too in the past. My expectation overall is that this backfield is kind of split, but I'm continuing to try to challenge myself with Akers. Previously, I had Akers at like RB70. Like, I was just totally off. And studying things that Adam has talked about has changed my mind. So, okay, moving on. RB40. We got the Ravens backfield here. Our running backs 40 and 41, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins obviously is the more talented guy. He is the RB1 in this backfield. But he had an ACL tear, and I think we talked about on the podcast that he also had an LCL tear. So he has to recover. He's got to heal more stuff. So the minimum 9-month recovery return or return to play, or maximum 12-month. It seems to be it's going to be a little bit extended past that, and it looks like he's going to start the year on the physically unable to perform list, which means he's out for the first 4 weeks of the season. Gus Edwards he also tore his ACL, but I think it was an isolated ACL tear, and I believe he's coming back, and he's not expected to be placed on physically unable to perform. Edwards has always been fairly efficient, behind Dobbins. In fact, I think the 2021 season, I think he might have led the league in yards per carry with a minimum of 100 attempts. He's very good. He's not a prolific do-it-all kind of guy, but Gus Edwards is a capable rusher. Yeah, in 2019, oh my gosh, every year of his career, he has gone over 100 yards, or excuse me, he's gone over 100 carries, 137, 133, 144, and his yards per attempt, 5.2, 5.3, 5.0. Now, yards per attempt, we know a lot of that can be correlated to the offensive line. They still got a pretty good offensive line. But it takes a little talent to get over the 5-yard mark. I think that J.K. Dobbins will come back, in October, and he's gonna kick butt when he does come back. But for the first few weeks of the season, you might actually have a running back too in Gus Edwards, and then I think that he'll get his workload scaled back, but he'll still be probably multi-flex viable. Edwards, and even in a 0 RB build, you could probably start him as an RB2 on a weekly basis. So I like both of these guys, just due to the injuries. They're where they are. Don't be surprised if they move up past these groups. But anyway, moving on. I've got Mark Ingram here at 42, and it's basically just a leftover from slowly adjusting to the news that Alvin Kamara is probably going to play for all of 2022. I don't expect him. If we get the green light on Kamara, Ingram will touch the ball 6 to 8 times a game, maybe, or he'll touch the ball more and he won't be able to do anything with it because he's really old. But if Kamara misses time, which is something you should bake into, one or more of your underdog drafts. If you're doing 20, draft Mark Ingram twice on the off chance that Kamara does get suspended. Here's the other thing with Kamara is all of that we talked about earlier is assuming that the video does not get leaked. What we have in the past is examples of if the video gets out and the public sees it and it's this terrible thing, think Kareem Hunt, they will just issue a suspension. And so if that happens, Kamara could suddenly be suspended. So it's still prudent to draft Mark Ingram to the back of your bench. RB43, Melvin Gordon, we talked about it already. He'll be involved with this, but they have built their 2022 season around Javonte Williams as being their workhorse. Devin Singletary, rotational rusher. Alexander Mattison, he might be factored more into every down work, or not every down work, but routine work with the change in Kevin O'Connell. They have cycled guys in LA when O'Connell was there. So I think it's reasonable to expect that Madison is going to have a little bit more standalone value and still like smash stuff value if Dalvin Cook is out. But he's an RB4 for me. Rachaad White, we already talked about him. If he takes over or gets meaningful work in Tampa Bay, smash. But right now, Lenny is set up to just eat, not gumbo touches. RB47, Jamal Williams. I find question mark floor play and might deserve a little bit more respect. I could see him actually performing as an RB3 on a weekly basis. That's part of DeAndre Swift's potential range of outcomes. JD McKissic is RB48. Wentz is a little bit more of a downfield thrower than the guys that they've had there. Michael Carter, we touched on him. He'll stay involved, and he actually may deserve a move up here, but we'll continue to evaluate RB50. Chris Evans, we touched on him. He's separated from Samaje Perine as the primary pass catching back. Tyler Algier, he will get work in the Atlanta backfield as a rusher. Khalil Herbert, he smashed last year, but of course the brilliant Dwayne McFarland has highlighted the name on Twitter of Trestan Ebner as a proficient pass catching back. I think he's a rookie in the Chicago backfield. Could eat into Herbert's work if Dave Montgomery misses time. We don't know, but keep that in mind as you're drafting primary bell cow backups. Isaiah Spiller has parts of his college profile that we don't necessarily love, but they let go of Justin Jackson. Larry Roundtree, we talked about a lot last year, as the offensive lineman athletic spectrum, and Josh Kelly's not really that good. And they invested a pick in Spiller. So I think Spiller is going to be, I think he'll get touches. I think that he could earn his way to multi-flex standalone weekly value. And I think that he would be a good fill-in if Eckler were to miss time. Keaontay Ingram is really interesting. So they let Chase Edmonds go. This is Arizona. They let Chase Edmonds go. I've seen stuff about Benjamin finally rising to the number 2 job. I don't think that's the case. I think that Keaontay Ingram is a very, very good late round draft pick as the potential number 2 in Arizona. And I think that should James Conner miss time, which he might, Keaontay Ingram could friggin' eat. I think Ingram is a great dynasty draft pick. Something here from my NFC West preview that I'm slowly working on. 2021 senior season results at USC: 1,067 scrimmage yards, 5 touchdowns, 22 receptions. That's very good for college. Through his 4-year collegiate career, he averaged 22.25 receptions per year. That's a lot for college. That's a lot. So this guy is a capable dual threat. His size is good, 6 foot, 220 pounds, and he ripped a 1.53 10-yard split in the 40-yard dash. Very good. Adequate jumping drills, mediocre shuttle times, but we have an explosive, bursty guy who's a capable pass catcher. Put Keaontay Ingram on your late round draft target list. Brian Robinson Jr., capable running back from Alabama. I think that he will be the 2023 lead back in Washington, and I think that he could steal meaningful work from Antonio Gibson by year's end. RB56, Dearness Johnson, he showed that he belongs. He's slow, but he showed that he belongs. I think he's a fine dart throw, especially if you're thinking that Kareem Hunt might get traded. RB57, this is all to you, Jax Falcone of Dino Game Theory and undrafted, the undroppables. Backup running back in Tennessee, one Julius Chestnut. Mr. Chestnut is a rookie this year. He is big. He is fast. His athletic profile is hysterical. I think I heard Jax Falcone compare him to, which is an alias, but his Scott Belanger is his real name, but he's like profiled to Saquon Barkley. So he played at Sacred Heart, so he's beaten up on small school competition. But just going to give you the top to bottom here: 5'11", 228 pounds. Pro day was a 1.54 10-yard split. Fine. Bench press, 22 reps, vertical 34, broad jump 905, 20-yard short shuttle 4.34, 3-cone drill 7.03. These are adequate numbers. Some of those are good. I mean, his size is he's built to carry the load. And I think I had to go to Sacred Heart's website to go get his stats when I was looking at this stuff. Career rushing last year. Yeah, I mean, he's got some good lines here. 2019, pre-COVID, 239 attempts, 293 attempts, 1495 yards, 11 touchdowns, averaged 5.1. I think that's yards per attempt, but they phrase it a little bit strangely there. In that same season, caught 14 passes for 179 yards, 2 touchdowns. That doesn't sound prolific. Given circumstances, that's proficient. That's very proficient. He's there next to Hassan Haskins, who is like the least athletic dude that you and I know. So Haskins went to a bigger school. He came out of Michigan. He's 6'2", 227. All they have is his bench press reps. Why was it? I think it might have been from Matt Waldman's rookie scouting portfolio, but anyway, Haskins just like not that great of an athlete, as I recall. Obviously, I'm having trouble citing the source there now, but Julius Chestnut is a like fun final pick in drafts. I think he's also 100% rostered on my underdog rosters. I will be leaving drafts with Julius. You can take him with your last pick. Okay, RB 58, Pierce strong. And part of the Julius Chestnut thing is just like Derrick Henry could get hurt right away. He could totally fall off. Okay, number 58, Pierce strong. We talked about him. He is the best bet to be the 2023 James White. This year, I think he'll compete with Ramondre Stevenson for passing game duties. RB 59, Sony Michel in Miami, and RB 60, Raheem Mostert, also in Miami. Michel might get cut. I think I heard something about that, but Michel is good pass protector, okay in the receiving game. Raheem Mostert, dynamic rusher. His injury woes. Samaje Perine got his job's been taken. Nyheim Hines, I probably need to move him up because I think Matt Ryan will check down to him more than Carson Wentz did. The coaching staff does like Nyheim Hines. I probably got to get him into the RB5 range. 63, Kansas City backup Isaih Pacheco. Pacheco is, as I recall, a dual threat. He's a rookie. Long shot, super long shot, but he could be the guy in 2023 as a pass catcher in Kansas City. And if they decide to move on, because I think this is Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's final year, they could start to see what they've got in Pacheco. Clark and I, NFL Clark, we've got him. Did we draft him in our FFPC team? I don't recall. We wanted to. Trey Sermon at 64, I'm out, but he's on a good team and he's a running back. Kenneth Gainwell, Philadelphia, he'll get some work. It'll be irritating. Myles Gaskin, I think he's done. So we already talked about Hassan Haskins, Jerome Ford, Cleveland, James Robinson. We already talked about it. Yeah, Robinson, undrafted free agent, one good season in the NFL. He was having a good year, but he ruptured his Achilles, and they put a bunch of draft capital into Travis Etienne after they had James Robinson have his great year. So I think that Robinson, my hope for him in his career is that he continues to make money and that he has a better than Dante Foreman return, meaning he gets signed to a team, he can play in a rotational capacity, but I'm not optimistic for him this year. And RB 70, the last guy here, don't worry, Pete, we're shutting it down, is Chicago Bears backup Trestan Ebner. We mentioned him earlier. All right. This will do it for the running backs. Go back and check out my podcast with Adam from earlier this week. We're going to have some fun guys coming up. I'm not sure what's on deck immediately, but we are going to have the great Ryan Reynolds of Establish the Run. And I think he's got an NFT platform that he produces content for as well. Reynolds, nice guy, brilliant guy. I'm really pumped to talk to him. We're going to get him on the show, I think in the last week of July. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for listening. Talk to you soon.